JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. May 30th, Friday, 8:56 a.m. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at, go from there. S&P futures, they were in the red earlier, and then took a little further turn to the downside after the Trump comments. So I'll talk about that in a second. But yesterday, not too bad a session. Well, all things considered, markets gapped higher after the court ruling to block the tariffs. That was Wednesday evening. Then uh, markets gapped higher and then gave back some of the gains. And then by 12 o'clock, boom, they were in the red. 586 on a SPY tap and then bounced, and then we still closed solidly in the green. But it's almost like reality, right? I don't think the court ruling on Wednesday does much besides add a little more uncertainty. Right now, who knows how this plays out? And then I'm sure the Trump, the administration is going to pull some other cards to keep going with this tariff situation. So we'll see how this all plays out. Supposedly it's going to go to the Supreme Court. I don't know. But an appeals court ruled yesterday afternoon that they'll pause the block on the tariffs for now until this all gets resolved. But I think at the end of the day, you just want to see the deals get worked out. Then we don't have to worry about this stuff, right? But here we are, deja vu all over again. Last Friday it was Apple. First, the Apple tweet came out. Hey, we're going to put a tariff on a 25% tariff on iPhones not made in the U.S. And then the next tweet was, oh, and by the way, we're gonna slap a 50% tariff on EU starting June 1st. And the EU is the biggest U.S. trading partner by far. So, but then that turned out, not that that was a fake out or whatever, but of course it does on Friday, and then they say, oh no, we're gonna over the weekend came out report halting it, and then futures rallied. So here it is again today, deja vu all over again. It's funny how it works. Last week there was news pieces and TV. If you're watching TV in the news outlets, that was Thursday. You could see stuff about Apple building a plant in India, and then the next day he comes out with that tweet or on Truth Social, and then today it's the same thing, right? Yesterday, yeah, Besant and talks said and headlines everywhere. China U.S. talks have stalled a bit, right? It stalled a bit. It didn't sound like stalled completely, and China markets were in the red overnight. I don't know if it was all based on that. But then, ironically enough, this morning, now it's Trump saying that the China has completely, I forget the exact quote, completely violated its agreement, totally violated its agreement with us. Like not just violated or little, like totally, like every single thing that they talked about, right? I mean, hard to believe that would be the case, but so the hope here, one, is that maybe the market's doing the boy who cried wolf situation, right? We've seen this before. Market sell off. The first time, big sell off. Second time, maybe not as big. And then last week, you saw it was almost like the markets were starting to shake it off as the day progressed. So that's the one optimistic thing that I would say. And the other part of it is, hey, if it does anything, maybe this expedites some conversation between President Xi and Trump, and maybe that happens sooner rather than later, and we can get over that hump, right? And then I think once all this stuff kind of plays out, maybe finally we can get a trading environment that is conducive to some lottos. I mean, if you're holding stuff into lottos into today on Friday, and then it's option expiration day, and you think you're sitting great in some positions, and then boom, all it takes is one little comment. It's just frustrating. All right, so that's the overall market. So still, I talked about 586 to 597. I was hoping we would trade up near 600 by the end of the week. PCE data came in this morning, cooler than expectations. Seems like almost like a non-event. So it looks like we'll have to wait another week on that. Fed meeting's not for another 3 weeks. It's funny. Take a look at the Fed, the CME, the implied cuts, right? The market probabilities of rate cuts, and there's pretty much a zero rate cut probability for the June meeting, and then it's like a small possibility for a rate cut at the July meeting. And if you just go back to last month, it was like by July the market was pricing in the 2 rate cuts. So pretty remarkable how that that whole crazy how the economy is going to crash when a recession. That whole story is kind of like taking the back page, and things shift so quick, right? Last week also was the U.S. It was the Japan yen carry trade 2.0 event that we got back in the summer was going to happen again, and maybe it does. But all right, that's it for now. It's kind of overall markets, and nice little. I always like to look at some of these charts that especially Ryan Dietrich puts up, and I think Pinto tweeted this one about earnings estimates, right? And you take a look, this is just actual for 2024, and then you look at the estimates, and I mean, take a look at EPS growth all the way into 2026. Obviously, those are estimates, but I mean, a lot of the market is pricing in forward expectations, right? So that's why when you see stocks move, and you're like, wow, they just posted a great beat, but they lowered guidance and the stock gets destroyed. You're like, why did it get destroyed? It's because the market takes more value on guidance than they do the current numbers, right? Because current numbers, the current Q1 already happened, right? It's a backward looking number. Even the names that are reporting now, if they're reporting Q1, but that's 2 months old data by far. Some in some cases 4 or 5 months because that's starting in January. So all right, that's overall market yields dipped yesterday, so that continues to go in the right direction. And the VIX was red yesterday, so good stuff. All right, so now just individual names. First Wayfair, and unfortunately this tariff China situation this morning probably going to take a hit on W. It all the way down to 41.49 just early, but maybe it'll bounce here. But that's why I closed the weekly strikes in. So gapped at 43.50 or so at the open yesterday, all the way up to 43.99, and pulled back into the mid 42s and chopped around there for the rest of the day. Still closed up 1% and over its 200-day moving average, but didn't want to be in a spot where I didn't lock the profits in. And I have the June strikes. So thankfully, locked the weeklies in for over 1,000%, and then I just held the Junes. At the open, I was actually looking to close some of the Junes too when I closed the weeklies, but they weren't 100%. They were like $1.95, and the spread was wide, so I just let those ride. If I do get another chance to close them out for 100%, I will. Otherwise, I'm just going to ride them, and hopefully you can find some footing here. And you have to think this Southeast Asia, there has to be a deal there, right? Once that happens, I think it's off to the races. As long as it holds that 200-day moving average. I don't know if I'm going to have like a spot where I'll salvage the June strikes just yet. But I mean, if it breaks 40, depending on what the premiums look like, I don't think that'll happen. Which brings me to DELL. And yeah, disappointing, right? I mean, if you had told me the DELL numbers beforehand to start a week, I would have said it's up 10, 15%. Huge beat. And when I say huge beat, it was huge beat on the revenue side. EPS, they missed slightly, but then their guidance, monster guidance, like monster guidance. And back when I fell in love, I wouldn't say fell in love, but when I really started liking DELL back when it was on $100 last year, the big story is their backlog. And it used to be like 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion. Now it's $14 billion backlog. I'm just crazy stuff. And they're like hand in hand with NVIDIA. So it's like it's down here. It's in the red now. They released results, and it's like the market said, wow, this is phenomenal. 121, 122, 123, 126, I think it tapped. And then it's just been melting ever since. Half of me wants to try and trade this for a lot because I'm like, this is going to rally here today. But the other half is like, maybe folks are just going to punish it. Similar to like AMD, right? AMD, it's like that stock always seems like, when is it going to break out? When's it going to break out? The NVIDIA stepbrother, and it never does. So maybe that's the case here with DELL, but I'll be watching. It's just very disappointing. I was watching the W calls, so and then by the time I looked at DELL had already dropped from highs 115 down to 112. So I held my lotto. So unfortunately, that trade didn't work out. But you take a look, the 200-day moving average of 110. Maybe if you test there, that'd be a nice buyable bounce. So I'll be watching that one. Disappointing day for GameStop. Sell off day number 2. I keep saying this is kind of like similar setup to what it did post earnings, where it had that sell the news event, and then I think it was $29 earnings, and it just sold off after the offering news. But then it was $21, and then it just kept melting higher all the way up into the 35 and change this week until the news. Similar things setting up. I think that's my thoughts, right? I think it trades here. Hopefully, I thought it would hold 30. Hopefully, you can get back over 30. If I think it does, then I think it trades up into the 40s and beyond in the coming weeks. I'll just continue to hold the July strikes I added, but if I do see some other opportunities, I add some more strikes. And then other names I'm watching. I mean, I'm still my eyes on Pool. Was flat as a pancake yesterday. Spreads are tightening up, so maybe those June 330s at some point show some strength. 50-day moving average right there at 307. I don't think it will take much for that to get going. And I was looking at some of the candles at the start of the year. I mean, it was like 310 all the way up to 350. It's had these runs when it hit bottoms. 320 all the way up to 350. 320 all the way up to 3, and these are like 3, 4, 5-day runs. I think it's only a matter of time before it has this bounce, and it has that Berkshire Hathaway stakes. That's kind of like the backdrop there. Joby disappointing here. I thought $8, so it's just got to hold the 8 handle. If it does, I'll look to add some more strikes. It actually looked good at the open. It was red, rallied into the green, hit highs over the highs from Tuesday, and then just melted for the rest of the day. Hopefully that holds $8. If it does, I'll look for more strikes. And then 2 other names, Biogen. Sure enough, it's doing what it should have done last week. I mean, I would need it to trade over 135, but depending on what the premiums look like, don't be surprised if I add some 140s for next week. Still have my eyes here on TKO. And then, like most Friday option expirations for the last couple months or the last 2 months or so, might be a little aggressive. You know, I was watching Reddit yesterday, almost got some 120s, but you know, it was 114, and then boom, when the market faded, you had that court order, and some names came under pressure. That gave back like $4 or $5. Don't be surprised to try some lottos there. You know, I'm still watching Roku here with a uh, optimistic view, but it's like I don't know. The instant I get it, it's gonna stay flat for the next couple weeks, so I'll probably just stay away from that one. Um, I think that's about it, folks. I'm trying to think of some of the other. I mean, I still have some of the Trip June 15s. That's just not moving too much. They had some more strikes. At some point, I'll add some more there. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.